What's up, everybody? Welcome back, Nerding Out Sports. It's Rob and Donald, and today we are talking about some potential cuts for the Giants roster this coming off season. There's some pretty obvious names on here, just to get that right off the bat. Guys that you can pretty much see the writing on the wall for. There is one player that I'm going to save for last. I think he'll spark the most discussion amongst what to do with him. Also, something we need to get out of the way is we already know that the Giants are going to eat money. They're going to have a lot of dead cap. They've already admitted that. They've said they're going to do it in order to save money. So we're going to leave dead cap out of the conversation. Just we already know that that's what's coming by cutting a lot of these players. So we'll start things off with James Bradbury. If the Giants are to trade him or cut him, they would save $12.1 million off their salary cap. I'll go to you first. I think I already know my answer, but I'll go to you first.
I look to trade him. First of all, I'm just thinking about Wink's system. Obviously, Bradbury would be useful in that system. He needs good cover corners in order to allow him to blitz and things like that. But we just can't keep that cap number. So I would look to trade him, or else I'd let him go. Negotiating a new contract just pushes it further down the line. I would move on and make Adoree Jackson the number one receiver, number one corner, and go and get some corners in the draft and possibly free agency and a cheaper number. So yes, I would look to trade him as a priority. What about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna lead towards cut. I don't know if there's many teams that would take on that cap hit. If he goes to free agency, he'd be a lot more easier to sign, I guess, for other teams. They'd probably get him for a little bit less. Now, if a team does see him for 1 year at 12, potentially 12 million or whatever it is that he would cost them, then you might get like a mid-round pick. But I think at this point, you're probably not going to get more than maybe a fourth, maybe a third if a team is willing to give that up if they have the cap space. But I think he's more than likely just going to be cut and they save it. They have to. It's a big number. And you're looking to save, they want to save, $40 million. They want to be able to cut that off the cap. And that's a big chunk of it right there with just one player. So it's unfortunate because Bradbury's really good. But this is what happens when you, like you just mentioned, push contracts back. You put yourself in this position. So they really can't keep him. That's the unfortunate part of it, unless they were to try to extend him. But then again, you're not going to really extend a player when you're rebuilding. So you kind of have to move on from Bradbury, which is an unfortunate circumstance, but it basically has to be done when you're rebuilding and needing to save money. So we're both in agreement on that one. Bradbury more than likely out the door. Next up is Blake Martinez, another Gettleman offseason signing before the 2020 season. He would save $8.5 million off the cap. Coming off the injury, I don't know how you keep him for that number, especially, again, those two players alone get you halfway to what your goal of $40 million is. So much like Bradbury, you see where they're headed with a guy like Martinez.
Unless they negotiate the contract into more like bonuses and incentives and just basically get that cap number down, I can't see any way where they would get that. They would keep him on for that. So yeah, I would look to cut him. I don't think obviously trading him. I don't see that being a viable option. I really like Blake Martinez. Don't get me wrong. I thought I think he's really solid, good leader. And the defense really missed him last year. I'm just thinking with him coming off such a serious injury, his age creeping up a little bit, very high cap number. I'm wondering whether you can get a middle linebacker in the draft. There's some really nice ones there. Some very sexy numbers. Like for instance, if you maybe traded down, you from 7, for instance, if for a quarterback needy team, there's some really nice middle linebackers sitting there. That like one from Georgia, for instance, just off the top of my head, that could just be awesome, especially in Wink Martindale's system. So I think when with Wink wanting guys that's going to be constantly pressuring the quarterback, and you want a young, healthy middle linebacker. So I'm going to move on from Blake Martinez, and it's no disrespect to him. I think he's awesome, but move on.
Yeah, it's similar to Bradbury. Two good players, but two big cap hits for guys that probably you're not going to keep past this year anyway. So you pretty much you have to do it now, save the money, and just get younger at the position. The next one I have here is pretty easy. It's Kyle Rudolph. You save $5 million off the cap.
Bye.
Yeah, they did not use him at all for what he is, which is a big red zone target. Could have had a pretty interesting system with him and Ingram in the same offense. And much like everybody on our offense last year, he just was not used. There was some injuries here and there, but for a guy that was brought in to be a big red zone target along with Kenny Golladay, we did not use him for what he is. And I can't see them using him in Brian Dable and Mike Kafka's offense that much. He's not Travis Kelce, like what Travis Kelce was for the Chiefs. So, yeah, I don't see any way you keep Rudolph on this roster.
It's a terrible contract in the first place. It was far too high. We have to move on. You're right, though. I mean, very talented, big receiver. If you could get him the ball, just injuries, bad play calling, bad system, not a healthy quarterback, all kinds of stuff. Didn't work. He has to go.
Yeah. Next up, Sterling Shepard.
Gone.
Saves $4.5 million off the cap. It's such an unfortunate thing with Shepard because I'm pretty sure he's our longest tenured player at this point. He comes from the Reese administration. He was drafted back in 2016. So talented. He's good when he's on the field, but it's just constant injuries. You don't know when he's going to play. Considering we have Golladay, we still have Tony, they still have Slayton, and you could always draft a receiver and sign one for cheap in free agency if you need to. I just don't see how you keep Sterling Shepard on this roster. I'm surprised that Gettleman kept him because Gettleman did not draft him, and we saw Gettleman get rid of basically everybody that Jerry Reese took. But he kept Shepard because Shepard does have a lot to offer. Good route runner. He's quick. He got good hands. But again, there's that injury history. It's every other year. He just cannot stay on the field. So again, it's basically the same thing as these other players here. The talent's there, but when you're trying to save money and you really can't see a spot for him.
Unquestionably, Daniel Jones, most reliable receiver. There's not even a debate about it. Whenever you throw the ball in Shepard's direction, he's going to go get it. He's got great hands. He's a very good route runner. He's the ideal, for me, an ideal slot receiver. And if he stayed on the field, but he just cannot stay on the field. Just cannot do it. We've tried it numerous years, basically, so as long as I can remember, he just cannot stay on the field. So there's absolutely no way that you could even contemplate keeping him on the roster with that cap number and the fact that he just can't stay healthy. So yeah, he has to go.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because he, like you said, he checks all the boxes of a player that you want for any offense. He can basically go any offense he's going to work. And like you said, very reliable. When he's on the field, Daniel Jones is going to look his way. That's just the fact. And the only way I can see him staying is if they somehow moved Golladay. if anyone took Galladay's contract in a trade or something like that, then you keep Shepard. But
it's a lot of dead money, man. I don't
yeah,
think there's even any benefit to that.
right. Which I don't. Again, it's something I just don't see happening. So basically, again, everyone on this list is pretty much a player that you're probably going to have to move on from. Which is the next person is the punter Riley Dixon, $2.8 million off the cap. I think this is a pretty easy choice. He has been dreadful the last couple of years. Not Matt Dodge bad, but it's pretty close. He's been pretty bad, and to save nearly $3 million, he's got to go.
Gotta go. We're not exactly doing anything too creative in this podcast. Everyone's got to go at the moment, but I'm sorry, man. Riley Dixon, you can't even think of an argument to keep him. Terrible punter. Terrible. Obviously, as you say, not Matt Dodge terrible, but he's a very solid second in my recent list of terrible punters. So he's a close second.
Yeah. Well, we were spoiled with Jeff Fiegels for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and then we moved on from him, and we had that era with Dodge, and then we had Weatherford for a little bit, and then
Weatherford
he was
good.
Great.
I liked Weatherford.
Yeah, and then he kind of tailed off, and then we moved on. We had Brad Wing? We had Brad Wing for a little bit. He was okay, and then he kind of tailed off as well. And even Dixon started off. He was like, hey, the guy's pretty solid, and then it's like that's the thing with our punters recently is they have a good couple of years and they just fall off. So maybe they look for an undrafted guy. I don't know. But for $3 million, there's no reason to keep him on the roster. Now, this next guy is someone that I can see them keeping, and that's Devante Booker. He would save $2.1 million off the cap, but he was pretty solid last year, all things considering how bad our line was. Booker was not bad, and obviously we're saving probably the best for last, and that could tie into it. But I would keep Booker. In all honesty.
Okay. I thought Booker was really good. I thought he obviously clearly outperformed Saquon all last year, as far as I'm concerned. But with $2.5 million saved, you can get running backs in the draft, 5th, 6th round, no problem. Goodbye.
I could, it's certainly something to think about there because, again, you could sign a different running back for cheaper potentially.
Mm-hmm.
There is the draft. But if they move on from this next guy, which is number 26 himself, Saquon Barkley, who would save you about $7.2 million off the cap if they were to trade him or cut him. This is the one, there's a reason I saved it for last because it's going to be a pretty hefty discussion. What do you do with Saquon Barkley? Because we know that Joe Shane and Brian Dable like him. Shane mentioned you got to block for 26. You got to make sure you got blockers in front of him. They've mentioned his name quite a bit already. It seems like they want to move forward with him in the offense. But when you're talking about needing to save money and he's in the last year of his contract, you're probably not going to give him a big deal after this. Do you wait to move Saquon? Maybe in the middle of the season, if he's looking good, but the team's kind of middle of the pack or not in contention, do you trade him then when his value might go up? Or do you take what you get for him now and save the money?
We don't know what he's like going into next year. It's possible that his knees will be much healthier. It is a big injury that he recovered from. Sometimes it can take the next year in order for you to be right back to full explosion. There's a bunch of critiques that I have about his running style that I don't think translates into what we really need. He doesn't hit the hole hard. He kind of pitter-patters around the line of scrimmage, dances far too much, loves to jump and dance and twirl and all this stuff. I mean, bro, just hit the hard, go for it. But he just doesn't do it. Now, we have been miscoached. We've been badly coached. Our offense has been disgracefully coached for a while now. Pat Shurmur was a very good offensive coordinator, and I know for a fact that he took Saquon aside and he's like, don't be afraid to take some 30 yards. And it worked because Saquon was really good under Shurmur for the most part. So I'm thinking with a Brian Daboll offense, you give Saquon one more chance. First of all, to semi-justify that selection. And second of all, he'll be useful for Daniel Jones as an outlet. He's an excellent receiving running back. If you can, design plays around that. The Giants never really did that enough. I don't understand why. Because if you get him in the intermediary part and going outside, taking on corners, and he's unstoppable, man. You just need to get him out in the flat. So yeah, I'm going to keep him, but it's very much with a view to you're going to have to really start knuckling down. I don't know if he wants to get tackled anymore, and who could blame him after the serious injuries that he's constantly had to deal with? But he needs to not be afraid of contact, and with what he could do to our offense, I would keep him one more. Well, I'd give him maybe up to the trade deadline, week 8, and see where you are. If he's still the same Saquon as he was last year, then take what you can get from a 5th round, whatever, 4th round, just move on. But no, I think I'd try and keep him because the offense does need some weapons for Daniel Jones, and but that shouldn't preclude us from. That's why I cut Booker. That shouldn't preclude us to go and look for a more physical back that could spell Saquon. Saquon could still be a useful 3rd down back. I'm not saying that as that's what we do, but maybe you could split carries if he's not fully healthy. If you have a really solid kind of physical back either in the draft or in free agency, just to spell it, I think we'd be fine. So I'm going to keep him. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year and he started off and it looked like he was afraid, and rightfully so. He's coming off of a major injury and he had never gotten hurt, prior to the NFL. He had that amazing rookie season. He even had a great second year despite getting hurt. And you're like, this guy's going to be special. And then 2020 happened. And then last year you just saw him never really 100% until the end of the year. He started to look more and more like his old self. So it gives you confidence that going into this year with a new system that'll use him right the way Shurmur did. That's one thing I will give Shurmur a lot of credit for is as bad as the team was, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley looked fine under Pat Shurmur. The 1 year of Daniel Jones, we would kill for that right now from Daniel Jones the last 2 years. Saquon Barkley, we would kill for that Saquon Barkley right now. So if we can get that kind of production, I won't say 2018 Saquon because that's an unfair thing to say for a guy that's coming off of 2 pretty serious injuries back-to-back years. If you get 2019 Saquon Barkley in this offense, that's going to do a lot for Daniel Jones because you're assuming they're going to improve the offensive line in some capacity, whether it's the draft, which they have to use one of those 2 picks on a tackle or an inside lineman. And then you just fill out the rest of the line elsewhere, 2nd round, free agency. But you're assuming it's an improved line. It's a new system that's going to utilize these players for what they are. So guys like Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay, they're going to be used the way they should be used. And Saquon Barkley, you're going to see him be used the way Shurmur used him a couple of years ago. So you can see why they would hold on to him because they're not tanking. They've already said it's probably going to be a rough year because, you're going through the rebuild phase. It's kind of phase 1. They're not going to win a ton of games, but you still want them to be competitive. So having Saquon Barkley, a healthy Saquon Barkley being used the right way, not the way Jason Garrett used him, that helps you be competitive. So I'm going to keep him, but I do think they have to at least explore the option of moving him. If some team comes up and says, we'll give you a 2nd Can you pass that up right now?
Well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But a third, I think a third. Like, for instance,
right.
what if there was there's no way that anybody would give up a second for Saquon Barkley.
Right. But that's just a fantasy kind of situation.
Yeah. But if there was a scenario, like, okay, let's look at this from this perspective, right? Say that he comes out of the camp and he's balling, right? He's rookie year Saquon Barkley. And in the first 2-3 weeks of the year, he's carried us on his back, right? Maybe we've stuck a couple of wins or whatever, right? And a team comes in, a team that needs a running back, like, say, for instance, the Chiefs. Say they're going for it and they want another back beside Elier, and they offered us a third-round pick. Would you do it, or do you keep him and let him play out the year?
How far into the season are we here? If it's just the first few weeks, you kind of...
Yeah, okay, well, up to the deadline then, up to week 8. And we're competitive and we're surprising teams. Say we're 3-5 or whatever.
See, previous regimes, they would probably say we're still in it. We're not going to move anybody. But for a player that's in the last year of his deal, if he is playing well, if you get a third and then maybe something else, a future pick or, like a fifth along with it, I think you have to explore it, because you're not going to get an offer from a team that's going to pick high in the round. It's going to be a low pick anyway. I guess it'd be similar to waiting it out and getting the third-round comp pick for him, but I think they'd have to. I think that's what they're more than likely going to do. They're going to keep him and then hope he's back to his former self, to where a team says we can use that right now to kind of do what the Rams did. We're going to go all in, and we're going to get this playmaker to help our offense and try to get to the ultimate goal, which is a Super Bowl. So I think if you're in the trade deadline, you're 3-5, whatever, but you're competitive and Saquon's back to his former self, you'd be foolish to pass up a third-round pick plus potentially more. And again, I know it's very unlikely someone would offer you a second, but if he is playing at an extremely high level and a team was desperate for him to go all in, you could potentially see a team giving up what would be a late second-round pick for him. And I think at that point, the Giants would be foolish to be like, no, unless they had plans to re-sign him, which you should not re-sign him to a second contract. So, that's such an interesting thing, because you really have to wait and see, because right now his value is low, but the cap hit is high. So you really have to. This is going to be the biggest test, I think, for Joe Schoen and his staff, is what do you do with Saquon Barkley? Because if you're keeping him, that tells me that they really want to get everything they can out of Daniel Jones, because you're keeping a really effective player on that offense, and they really want to evaluate Daniel Jones, and having Saquon with him helps him for sure. And that's why I would also keep Booker, but at the same time, you could get someone like him for cheaper as well. Yeah. So, but I'm gonna keep Saquon, which would probably have to make me change to cutting Booker. But for now, I think Saquon stays.
The issue with Saquon is you don't want to lose him for nothing. You do want to get something for him, and you're not going to get him at a discount. Say that he has a big year, you're not going to get a discount at Saquon. Saquon wants the bag, man. So he's not going to accept any discount. And the Giants can't afford to give him a big contract. So that is an argument to explore trading him in the offseason or seeing what you could get, because I don't want to lose him for nothing, but then I don't want to offer him a second contract, as you say, because there's no justifiable way to do that with the holes that we have in this team, and that cap hit, it's going to be huge. Re-signing Saquon Barkley, so that's it's basically a non-starter. So we're in a very difficult quandary, and I'd be really interested to see what our listeners and viewers are thinking here. what you guys would do. I'm on the boat that we explore trading him in the offseason. Unless we're blown away, we give him a chance because Jones does need a little bit of help. But it's very much he's got up to week 8, and if he doesn't get his butt in gear, because I've not been happy with Saquon. I didn't think Saquon's been that good for even when he's healthy. I don't like his running style. It was great in his rookie year, but it's really hard to justify all these dances that he takes. Like, I just want him to take those dirty yards, take 3-4 yards a time, move those chains. It's not hard, but he's afraid of contact.
I'd like to think that with this new offense, they'd not necessarily change his style, but they would use him because he ran the same way with Shermer, but it worked. They were able to design plays. Okay, we know Saquon likes to bounce it to the outside, even though he's probably got a chance to take it through the hole there.
Yeah.
So they would design plays where like an extra blocker would kind of wrap. You saw it, and that was such a simple thing for his running style, and it worked because he was electric in his rookie year. And it was a bad year, but he made it worth watching. He's like, what is Saquon going to do today? It was similar to what OBJ did in his rookie year. It's like, this team sucks, but what is Odell going to do today? So you watched because you wanted to see what they did. And to see him in the offense the last 2 years it was like watching a guy who was picked up off of the street, and you're like, okay, just run, because he didn't look like himself. And it just looked like they never knew how to run a play for Saquon Barkley. Now, you don't have to design an entire playbook for Saquon Barkley. If you want to turn him into, or try to get him to be more of a north-south runner, sure. He's a big dude. He can take the hits, but maybe he is afraid. But if he's healthy now, I'm not going to question his work ethic. You cannot question his work ethic. He's going to continue to work hard. It's just you really have to figure out what you're going to do with him, and that's got to be a kind of a priority. It's like, are we keeping Saquon Barkley or not? I think that has to be something they do right when the new league year starts. You have to make that decision. Is Barkley going to be here this year, or are we going to move on for him? Because you really can't wait. You might wait till draft day, and if someone gives you that offer that you just can't refuse. But it's such a tricky thing because, again, like we've been mentioning the whole time, the cap hit is that's a big reason why you move on from him. But trying to maximize your production from your entire offense in year one of this new regime, it makes sense to hold on to him and see what you can get later on in the season from a team that might be desperate and you could get more. So there's like both sides of the argument. So like you said, we're in kind of a quandary, a rock and a hard place almost with Saquon Barkley. That's why I saved him for last. Because
listen, Saquon's rookie year was one of the greatest rookie years of all time. It was absolutely electric. It's really unfortunate how it went, but that's what happens when you're drafted second overall to a roster which had was packed full of holes. You're just not going to move the needle. I mean, even if you was Superman, even if you was Walter Payton and Superman combined, there was so many holes on that offensive, so many problems in the offensive line and the offense and the whole team in general. It is impossible to move the needle to winning games like that. So his numbers were insane, absolutely insane. Every single week, you would guarantee that he's going to have one run of at least 50 yards. And it was insane what he was doing, but it's really unfortunate. He's a very good dude, and he is a hard worker, as you say. So, I want to give him one more chance, but I think we do need to explore the trade market because we're not going to re-sign him. So, Joe Shane says he wants to save at least $40 million off the cap. So he wants to clear off $40 million off the cap in order to afford the 2 first-round picks, the whole draft, and then attack some holes in free agency. Obviously, he's not going to sign any superstars in free agency, but maybe some solid veterans that you can maybe get in a decent contract. How much would we save? Say we cut off, we keep Saquon, right? How much would we save by letting go of the rest of those guys that we mentioned?
It's roughly about 33, 34 million, maybe a little bit more.
Right, and then Nate Solder, he's now gone, right?
Yeah.
Solder, right. So we've eaten, is it 2 million of dead cap, and how much
he
have
comes
we
off the
saved?
books.
Yeah, how much have we saved from him?
I'm actually not too sure about the number. That's something I honestly forgot about because it happened so quickly that I always thought he was just going to be cut, but it was voided, I think, his contract. So I didn't see the exact number. So I don't know if it comes off of the 40 million that he wanted to. If that's the case, then
yeah, that will.
Yeah, the rest of these players pretty much get you to that goal. And there's some other guys like O'Shane Jimenez and Trent Harris, I believe, is a guy that can save you close to $1 million if you were to move on from him.
Levine Toilolo, is he an impending free agent?
I believe so. I'd have to double check his contract, but again, it's another guy that you probably move on from.
Mm-hmm.
People have mentioned Logan Ryan, but you don't save much at all.
Nothing
compared to the dead cap. Yeah, you pretty much keep Logan Ryan because of the way his contract was constructed. There really aren't that many other players that would save you a lot that wouldn't give you a ton of dead cap. So guys like Adoree Jackson, Kenny Golladay, Leonard Williams, pretty much out of the discussion. You could try to move a guy like Dexter Lawrence, maybe just to try to save some money there, although I don't see that happening. But there are plenty of ways to get to that 40 million, but a lot of tough decisions are going to be made. So guys like Bradbury, Martinez, and Shepard, who are guys that I think every fan likes on this team, are probably going to have to go, and it's going to be tough to see them go, but it's something that has to be done.
So yeah, I think Toilolo is a free agent. So right, let's go through the pending free agents. Is there any that you'd re-sign? So let's start with long snapper Casey Kreider.
No.
No?
I don't think there's anybody that's impending free agents that you bring back.
To be honest, Kreider did a solid job. I mean, obviously we didn't really have any problems with our kicking game, really. So, he's a decent long snapper.
You can get him for cheap. So, yeah, I mean, he might be the only
I think
one.
he makes sense at the right price. If it was very, very cheap, he seems to have a good rapport with Graham Gano. So I would consider keeping him. Eli Penny, would you keep him?
No. I don't know. I don't see the real need for. We didn't even use him as a fullback, really. We use him more as a running back, actually. And he's basically a fullback, and we were giving him carries because of all the mess to our running game. So I mean, if you can find a role for him, sure, but I wouldn't be rushing to bring back Eli Penny.
No, I'd move on from Eli Penny. I think you could find better fullbacks. I really do. I'd let him go. Lorenzo Carter. This is an interesting one. Would you consider Lorenzo Carter re-signing him for instance, on a cheap 2-year, $8 million deal?
I can see them doing that. He did show out towards the end of the year, and he was looking great before he got hurt in 2020. So the talent's there. He's always been solid since we drafted him. So I can certainly see them wanting to bring him back if they don't want to use a first-round pick on a edge rusher, for instance. They could look to do that with Carter, bring him back on a 2-year cheaper deal than it would cost for a first-round pick. So that I wouldn't be opposed to him coming back at all. I like Zoe.
Well, yeah. So Zoe, he ended the season hot. 5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles in his last 4 games. However, obviously, he's kind of been a non-factor for a while. Other than that, he's also hurt a lot. But to factor in Wink Martindale, blitz-heavy scheme, he wants outside linebackers that can play multiple spots on either side, generate pressure. He is not a bad option as like a secondary option outside linebacker. Maybe he's a backup. Come in on blitzing schemes. It's a possibility, man. But do you not think that maybe another team might just go and offer more? Because I wouldn't offer more than, like, for instance, $8 million over 2 years.
Yeah, I can certainly see that being the case. If the Giants are going to get him back, they're going to try to. It's going to be. You've been, you liked it here or whatever. They're going to try to use the hometown discount thing, like you were drafted here. You if he likes being in New York, I'm not sure. I don't know him personally, of course. So they'd have to try to use the whole hometown thing and sell him on Wink Martindale's defense. That's the only way you get him back for cheaper, because there is a team out there that might overpay in a sense just to get him.
I think they will
see the potential
in free agency. And then the other one, Austin Johnson, who actually did a very solid job at defensive tackle.
See, that's something I would explore if they moved on from Dexter Lawrence. I don't want them to move on from Dexter Lawrence, but Austin Johnson has been good for us the last 2 years, very underrated. And he's the reason why we let go of B.J. Hill. We had Austin Johnson, we had Lawrence, we had Leonard Williams, and we got Billy Price for B.J. Hill. But I like Austin Johnson. So
3.5 sacks.
Yeah, he's not tackles. He's a solid player, very underrated. He's been sneaky good the last 2 years. No one really knows about him, but he's just solid. And that's one thing the Giants have always been good at, is getting kind of under the radar, good interior linemen, right? And they just play well, and they're able to move on from those guys and get a new one so quickly.
I really wish we didn't trade B.J. Hill. Sorry, man. I just really wish we didn't trade B.J. Hill. Like, seeing what he did at Cincinnati just makes me think. And I liked what he did when he first started as a Giant. I don't understand why he fell so far behind I think that he was very solid. And you see when he plays for the Bengals, what kind of a tantalizing prospect that he was as a very serviceable pass rusher in the interior. So that's kind of a miss. Certainly a terrible trade for Billy Price, but yeah, man, I would consider Austin Johnson. 3.5 sacks is very solid last year. So maybe he's a very cheap, second defensive tackle. I would consider that. I think we still need to upgrade, but the only ones I would explore is Austin Johnson and Zoe Carter, but it has to be very cheap, and I don't think we'll get him that cheap. And maybe Crossan. Would you go for Crossan?
If you need cornerback depth, sure. He's more of a special teams gunner, and we did hold on to our special teams guys, so they might want to bring back a pretty similar special teams unit. So I can definitely see him being a guy they bring back on the cheap. If they bring back any of these guys, it's going to be players that are willing to re-sign for 1, maybe 2 years max, and very, very small salary.
Yeah.
So that's really it.
And then finally, our most maligned tight end, Evan Ingram.
I think you got to let him go. I don't see how you give him big money. I know he would probably be good in this offense. I don't see how you give him a contract that would probably cost you a decent amount on the cap. You're talking at least like $7 million, maybe a little bit less.
And what about Gibral Peppers?
If he's coming off the injury too, so you don't know when he's going to play. So he might be a guy that comes back on a 1-year deal. Let me come back healthy and try to get that bigger contract next year. So I could see us bringing him back on that 1-year prove it deal. And then you got a pretty solid secondary if Peppers comes back at 100%, because you still have Logan Ryan, you still got McKinney and Love, and you'll have Adoree Jackson. So you can move those guys around in a Wink Martindale defense. So I would bring back Peppers if he was on that 1-year prove it deal, and then he goes for the big contract next year post injury.
So he's ideal fit for Martindale's system. On NJ.com, they say that PFF has him projected for a 1 year, $5.5 million deal. So say we cut Bradbury and save 12 million, you put 5 million into Gibral, you've got yourself kind of sorted as safety. However, you could also move on from Gibral Peppers, have Julian Love playing his position, and then McKinney and Logan Ryan as your other safeties. I think that option probably is the more cost effective. I don't see us drafting safety as good as the safety is in the top five. I don't see us selecting him. So I think that it's worth a conversation with Peppers, but I think he's probably gone, man. I think a team could give him a lot more than we'd be willing or able to give. Especially considering we've basically doubled down on Logan Ryan. We've got McKinney, we've got Julian Love, who I still think is a very solid safety. That's my thoughts on the matter. So it would be unfortunate to move on from him, but it's probably the most likely scenario. What about Nate Solder's gone, Glennon's gone. Glennon, like, ridiculous. Absolute ridiculous. I don't even know. Is he even a professional footballer? Will Hernandez. No. no. So that's it. That is our list of free agents. So there's not a lot that I would consider bringing back, as you say, man.
It's like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think Austin Johnson should come back. I would try to bring back Peppers, and I would at least explore Lorenzo Carter. It all depends on what they want to do in the draft. I think they already have a vision, but they're going to evaluate this roster top to bottom and see what guys they want to hold on to, and it all depends on how much they're able to save with these cuts. So I can't wait because I'm looking forward to this league year to start, see what they do. And yeah, I think it's a good conversation.
So of the original list that we went through of possible cuts, considering we basically said no to everyone apart from Saquon, is there one that you would maybe rethink and go, you know what, maybe we can renegotiate a cheaper contract? I'm thinking at the top of my head, Blake Martinez.
I think it'd be Shepard. Just because you know that when he's healthy, he's reliable. So I would lean towards Shepard because Martinez, you know what he gives you, but it's when is he going to be coming back? Like, Shepard should be ready by the time training camp rolls around. Where Martinez, you don't know. He might be back by like week 2 or 3, which would be best case scenario, although it could be later on. So I don't know if you rework a contract.
You could get a very cheap contract.
Yeah. It's similar to Peppers, though. And you don't know when Peppers is going to play. So probably it would be Shepard if I had to pick from this list.
Okay, I would go with Blake because we've had such a problem at middle linebacker for so long, and Blake was the answer to so many of our problems when he was healthy. He was fantastic. Big tackler, racks up the tackles, certainly cannot be overlooked. I would consider that. So yeah, I think if I was to look back on that list, I would see if we cut that cap down to very, very small 2 or 3 million hit, and the rest in bonuses or incentives or whatever. So yeah, I think that's our list. I would as for Gibral Peppers, the more I think about it, I can't see it. I just cannot see it. I think he's too good to accept a 5 million personally, and we've invested so much in Logan Ryan. We've got McKinney, who's just awesome, and we've also got Julian Love, who I think is a very solid player. So I think we'd probably ride with that, and then maybe look at a cheaper safety in free agency, or maybe lower later in the draft. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, that is probably going to end up being the case. But let us know what you think in the comment section below. What do you do with these players that we mentioned? Do you keep them? Do you cut them? Do you trade them? What are your thoughts on Saquon Barkley and in the impending free agents list? Who would you keep and who would you let go? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening on sportnarium.com/player and the Northeast Streaming Sports Channel on Roku. We are very happy to be a part of both of those stations. It is an honor. And also, of course, like, share, comment, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, do all that good stuff. It is going to be in the description below. And it's been Robin Donald from NerdingOutSports. Let's go Giants. We'll see you next time. Peace out.
Peace out.